All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Telivy MSP podcast. We're very excited to introduce our guest today. Simon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Simon, CEO of Baz Technologies, with software integration and migration specialists.
Awesome. And hey, everybody, I'm Jeremy, Head of Partnerships at Telivy. We're an automated risk assessments platform. MSPs like Halt Data Solutions, Strata Networks love Telivy because they can take typically a manual, full automated, full risk assessment, shrink it down from 7 to 8 days to just 5 days. So yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it. Can you tell us about Bass Technologies, Simon?
Yeah, sure. Baz Technologies started the company out back in 2013 when I was living in Australia. We started off looking after Oracle and SQL Server databases and application infrastructure. We found a lot of the projects that came up were to do with data migrations, integrations, and such like. So we quickly pivoted to turn around to doing more around the automation of those integration tasks and the migration tasks. So anything data orientated is what we do, including the business intelligence aspects as well. So there's a whole scope of things that we cover there. In 2019, moved to Florida and started the business up here. Yeah, COVID hit, and a lot of projects shut down. So it was tough times, and I think it's tough times for a lot of businesses out there. And really, what gained us traction there was people were looking for a way to save that time, save money. I mean, they're losing resources, so they had less time on their hands. That's where automation comes in, is just getting in there and having something else do that work for you. Just like you're saying, instead of spending 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
doing an audit, have something do the audit for you, and you get the specialist to look at those results.
Interesting. So you mentioned data migration, cloud, server management. Do you work with security, cybersecurity as well?
We don't actually do cybersecurity ourselves, but of course, when you're dealing with data, you can't ignore security. Security is ultimate, is forefront. We work with healthcare organizations, hospitals, and such like. So we got the HIPAA compliance side of things to bear in mind. We work with banking organizations, so we got PCI compliance. We work a lot. Our primary focus is education. So we got FERPA, which is again that's student data compliance as well. So we're all about making sure things are compliant, making sure things are secure, data secure, both at rest and on the fly. So you've got to work, we've got to work with the cybersecurity professionals to make sure that we have that aspect working correctly.
Got it, got it. So, you led right into my next question. You mentioned healthcare, education, banking. Could you tell us a little bit about your customers? Who are they? You mentioned these three industries. What is what is the customer journey end to end? And what are their problems and what do you do for them?
Okay, so we have two real types of customer. I mean, the actual industry verticals, a bulk of the largest bulk is education, followed by healthcare, followed by government and retail. I mean, we've worked with the likes of Billabong in Australia as well. So the global known brand is something we always reference.
Yeah.
Two types of clients really, that you got the type of clients that they're looking for that data infrastructure support. They want that data moving around in the background. And then you got the type of clients that actually say, hey, we need to be able to visualize this data. We know we've got data in multiple different areas. We want a central point where we can see, in schools especially, they're so fragmented with their data. They want to see all the grade reports, everything into one place. So we can bring that data into one place for them, and then put a reporting solution across the top of that so they can see a global view of their organization.
Interesting, interesting. Um, I'm curious. What were they doing before you came in to help them? Was it with paper? Was it manual?
There is a mixture. Again, Typically, what you find with specifically, we'll talk education in the school sector. They'll be going to their main student information system, and they'll be running reports in there, downloading CSV files, manipulating that data in Excel, doing whatever they
Uh,
fancy in Excel,
ah,
and then uploading that to the other systems. So they might be uploading to a learning system, they might be uploading to a procurement system,
mhm.
even like a Gmail, for example. You get new students, so students got to have a Gmail account, so they've got to then upload that data to Gmail. And they're doing that sort of thing manually, and of course, that takes hours or weeks worth of work. So
Absolutely.
a student would join the school, they'd enroll in school, and then it could be a week to 2 weeks later before they actually have access to all their systems. Now,
Wow.
by automating that process, we can do that near real time. Typically, schools just want it run once daily, so they'll load all the data in, make sure it's correct, and then it gets read in, and the next day that student has access to all their systems.
That's
Uh,
incredible. From 2 weeks to what, real time within one day.
yeah,
How
yeah.
how does you and your team do that? What is the technology? What makes it so that you could do things that they can't?
Yeah, so we, yeah, you'll be familiar with. There's plenty of other products out there, like Zapier, for example,
Hmm.
where you can automate your own process flows in Zapier. We're kind of like that, but we do a customer flow. We actually doing that right down at the data level. So we use typically .NET. Sometimes we use Python. We use whatever
Hmm.
language is appropriate to the environment. But by doing it in a raw language, it happens in milliseconds. There's no flows. You can manage the errors. You can put errors into, you can put exception queues. So if something doesn't work, you got an exception queue to manage. So it gives you better global visibility than you would do through something like Zapier. And of course, the big benefit is once a customer pays us to do that customer integration for them, they own it. There's no license costs. There, there's nothing else that needs to happen to it. We typically host something for them, or they can host it themselves. But other than that, there's no ongoing cost to it, and that's a great thing for schools is they can see their budget future with it as well,
Mm.
rather than having to deal with. Like I'll go back to Zapier again. As soon as something changes on one of the solutions, they then have to, the Zapier breaks, and they then got to work out why it's broken. And
Yeah.
not everybody has that technical know-how.
Oh, of course, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's why that's where you come in.
yeah, and that's where we really come in. Yeah,
I'm curious. So, you mentioned, so it's a great thing that the schools don't have to worry about ongoing software costs. But as a service, is this a managed service that you all provide that continuously every school year, right? New data, new enrollment, right? Something you manage continuously.
yep, yeah. We roll out a variety of options. We can do that. I don't. I wouldn't say fire and forget, but we do that. Build once, and the school doesn't need to come back to us again. They can do what they like. None of our customers do that. Customers, they're pleased. They're pleased with what they like. They
Yeah,
come back for
yeah.
more. They come back and say, "Well, hey, can you do this as well? Hey, we've been told you can never do this. There's this application has no APIs. How do we do? How do we get data from an application with no APIs?"
Mm.
And we say, "Okay, how do you normally do it?" Well, we log in and we download the CSV. Hey, we can do that. We can build robotic processes to do that for you as well. So there has been nothing that stopped us from getting the data from the source and then moving that to the target. So
Wow.
there's a variety of options there, and ultimately we do that efficiently,
Hmm.
accurately.
Hmm.
So data accuracy is another big thing. When you mess around with spreadsheets manually, you're gonna break data.
Yep.
So we build in that accuracy, and we do it securely, of course. We're not dealing with a load of Google Sheets. And how many companies running Google Sheets now? And there's so many, too many.
True. True.
And and yeah, it's kind of secure, but it's not secure. It's not that great a security measure to have things in spreadsheets. Let's keep things on between your secure places, so the source databases to the target databases through the appropriate channels, whether it be API, whether it be the application interface.
Yeah, like you guys do it right so that the school, the companies or the folks who aren't tech savvy, they could just trust you, have a peace of mind that everything's secure, everything's taken care of, data's accurate on all of that. And I particularly find automation very fascinating. There's a couple different ways that this conversation could go. One of the immediate thoughts is like, what about AI? Are you guys thinking about AI? AI is huge in automation, but also in terms of automation, it takes a very technical team to build automation. I'm also very curious, how did you get into this, the founding story? A lot of different directions, but why automation? Let's start there.
Why automation? It's in people, like you say, we've gone back to using the phrase AI. AI is a big phrase again. And I say again because it's been a big phrase several times in the past couple of decades, you know, and it just keeps coming back. And you say, okay, what actually do they mean by AI? And more recent years we've gone AI, we've done machine learning, neural networks, all those different key phrases, but we've come back to AI. And really, AI is about taking data and doing something intelligently with that data based on a set of rules. And that's I started off in my career in IT as a sysadmin, and sysadmins across the world, they're writing their own scripts. And they'll write some, whether it be a bash shell script for Linux, or whether it's going to be some kind of bat script or command script for Windows, PowerShell, well, they're writing their own scripts and they're doing an automation because they don't want to keep having to do the same thing time and time again. That's why automation is drilled into me right from that sysadmin foundation. I don't want to keep having to do this again. I can write it once and just click a button. It's gonna go ahead and do it for me. I can, on Linux, you can cron a job, or in Windows, you'll schedule a job. You've written your code once, and you'll just go off and keep doing it. And that's automation. And adding rules to that automation on, what happens if the result set comes back saying XYZ. What action do we take on XYZ? That's artificial intelligence. And when you move on to like the machine learning side of things, is rather than us hard coding that XYZ
Mm.
response, you'll then say the machine will actually intelligently learn what the correct response would be. So if it'll run through a set of tests and it'll say, hey, this is the right response to use for that, or I'll create a new response. And that's where machine learning and neural networks really come into their own. But that's way advanced, and most businesses, I must say, and I talk about this on the business intelligence side of things as well. Most maturity levels in businesses are pretty low as far as these technologies go. So they'll typically still be dealing with the spreadsheet side of things. So they're right at the bottom end of the scale for maturity level in any automation. They need to get through that. Okay, let's automate that process, and then let's start building some intelligence in that process so that it actually means something, and then present that in our business intelligence side of things. And then taking action on those results is your artificial intelligence.
So,
Um,
so
yeah, go.
yeah, I understand that the clients that you work with, right? They just need to get the job done. But your team, you're helping multiple clients, right, across multiple sectors,
Yep.
automate their processes. I'm curious if your team, I imagine, right, if you could get the code done and get that code done for multiple at the same time. Yeah. Is there any AI in terms of what the team may be looking into in the future?
In terms of our internal development.
Yeah, yeah, your internal
Yeah,
development.
yeah, most definitely. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the first stage is we've got reusable code. We build reusable code so that there's only a finite amount of ways you can move data. So most of the code we have, the core parts of the code is reusable. What we look to keep building is more about when you're saying AI, it's more about giving that user the ability to say, okay, I've got this code that can move, this file to this destination, but I want to move a different file to a different destination, and let that be user configurable. And that's where you start building that artificial intelligence on saying, okay, they want to do this to this. What is going to be the best method for them to be able to do that? What information is needed for that method? So yes, we are building that into our code as well.
Very, very cool. And I imagine on top of reusable code, it's reusable knowledge and wisdom, learnings and experience over time. Right? Oh,
Yep.
we had this issue with this one client. Now we know how to secure it for everybody else, right? Or to overcome that challenge for everybody else. That pooling of knowledge, right, and experience. I'm
Yes.
curious about you're the founder of Bass Technologies. What was the
Yep.
founding story? Why did you start it?
So why did I say like everything pretty much in my career has been pretty much accidental. I've had very few deliberate steps in my
Interesting.
career path. That's what I say. I I left school at the age of 16 in the UK, and I joined the Royal Navy,
Hmm.
and that was a deliberate step. That's something I wanted to do. I joined the Royal Navy. I wanted to be one thing. I accidentally became an avionics technician instead. I want to be a mechanical technician, but I became an avionics technician. And back in those days, part of,
Sorry, what's the difference? Avionics, mechanical.
so mechanical, they don't. Um, we're talking about dealing with aircraft engines, the mechanics of an aircraft, the actual things, the physical parts. Avionics being the electronical parts, the radios, radar, and all that sort of things. And part of our, or about a third of our training at the time, was computer knowledge. And I say computer knowledge. The language we used was Pascal for a 3GL
Yeah, yeah,
language.
yeah.
But a lot of we actually started off with the electronic circuits. So electronic circuits doing the simple if or else type things, and just doing that with electronics, so diodes, and then building onto chips. And so we started that, and then the first real coding level was like machine code. So we're writing in hexadecimal, so it's that's where we started with that. I spent 17 years in the Navy, and when computers actually became a thing for recording stuff in the Navy, recording information. So every aircraft has maintenance and such like recorded against it. That always used to be a paper thing. And in the 1990s, they said, okay, let's bring this up to date, and let's actually use computers.
Mm.
And so they said, okay, that's great. We're going to use computers. Who's going to look after these computers? And of course, it fell to our branch to look after computers. So I actually became a Windows administrator for 3.11 work groups. So we're talking pre Windows 95, so pre NT4. So it was back in the very early days of Windows, and then they quickly introduced the Unix Solaris systems as well. So that's where I started on my IT journey. Went forward a bit. I left the Navy and started a career working on a project with the Army. Working with a company called Cubic Defense Systems. They do like the Top Gun ranges for the aircraft training and such like. They also do infantry training, like a laser quest system, where all the tanks, aircraft, vehicles, they all have lasers. They're all shooting each other with lasers, and you record hits and kills and all those sorts of things. And I was in charge of the databases for all that behind that. So that sort of like led on naturally to me becoming more of a DBA. So at that time, I became an accidental DBA. That's one of my accidents. I became an accidental DBA,
But,
and
but beyond the accident, right?
yeah.
As you got into IT and managing these databases and working with Windows early stage and programming in Pascal and machine code, was there something that sort of kept you going? Like, was it interesting to you, or yeah, or
For me, what's really interesting and continues to be an interest to me is the power that we can actually give people. And certainly you'll see it in recent news articles when they're talking about AI.
Hmm.
The big Google people saying we're scared of AI. We need to put rules in to protect ourselves against AI. And and that's the immensity of the power that actually exists and the capability that's there. But what amazes me is businesses that are missing that trick. You know, they're still saying, "Hey, what we do works. We're quite happy, giving an intern a job of doing this boring stuff and moving spreadsheets around or something like that." Um, and so, but you're missing opportunities. You're missing opportunities to work faster, to work more efficiently, to actually do things that are going to be really effective to whatever your business is.
Yeah.
And that's something that's always driven me is making things more effective, more efficient, so that the business works better. There's no point having IT as just a cost center. And I mean, it's modern days not so, but certainly in the 2000s, the early 2000s, IT was just viewed as a cost center. It wasn't seen as a benefit to organization. It was viewed as more like, oh yeah, we got to have computers. It's just going to cost us money. It should never be viewed as that. It should be viewed as an asset, as something that the business should leverage
Hmm.
in making their job easier. So whatever job you do in the business, if your job's repetitive and you're finding, you think there's got to be a better way of doing it, chances are there is. And that's what's really drove me. I started my business in 2013 in Australia because I was a consultant for another IT company at the time. Things didn't pan out too well for them in the Brisbane region. So they closed the office down in Brisbane, and a whole group of us were like, okay, what do we do next? And I actually had some of the existing clients saying, hey, we need help. I had people come to me saying, hey, we need help. And I'm like, okay, I'll come and help you as a contractor. And then I had more people saying, oh, we need help. We need help. I can't. I'm one person. So, so that was the birth of Buzz Technologies, and I brought in people I knew to work with me on the various contracts on that. So that's the birth of Buzz Technologies, and really that was more about project based. It's data migrations, business intelligence, all that side of things. And when you're talking business intelligence, you can't have nice reporting systems and business intelligence without sound data. You can't have sound data without pulling that data from somewhere. You can't have that data coming from somewhere by somebody uploading spreadsheets, right? You're
Oh,
going to, you're
yeah.
going to, so you're going to automate, automation, integration. It's the whole flow. It's a whole stack. And I've always called myself a more than full stack developer. That term full stack developer, right? I'm more than full stack. I can go and build you a computer. I, I can go and polish the applications for you. So I can do every in between, and that's what we've been building in our business. Is okay. Yes, we could be everything to everyone. That's not a great business model. Where is the engine room to all this data? The engine room to all this data is integration, automation. That's the engine room. And that's where our core focus is, and that's where we really try to sell ourselves to help other people. And yes, we can do the other bits around the outside if a customer needs it, or we can outsource that and say, hey, we know, like cybersecurity guys, we know cybersecurity guys that can deal with that for you. We know an MSP that can deal with the computers for you. I'm
Hmm.
not going to go. I'm not going to go and put any of my team on fixing laptops. We're not in that arena. Servers, yes, maybe, but we're not going to do user end material.
Mm. And I love what you said earlier about most businesses see IT as just a cost. Oh, we have to do it. We have to spend the money to make sure our employees have laptops and they get fixed and they're secure and it's updated and all that. And we have a place to store all of our data. People can access it, and remote in, since remote work is huge now. But that's not how you see it. No, it's beyond that. It's a
Yep.
way that you can add to your business, optimize, be more productive, automate manual processes, drive revenue, lower costs. Like it's beyond just, oh, we have to, we have to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, how did you shift from public sector to private sector, from government aircrafts to working with businesses? Was it in while you were in Australia? What was that
No,
shift
that
like?
yeah. I guess for me, leaving the Navy, and I guess for anybody leaving the military, would any military organization would have the same feeling of you're taking a jump from a controlled, known environment
Mm,
into the Wild West. And that's where you're going. You're leaping into the Wild West, and every man for themselves, and you then have to sort of say, okay, how can I sort of like build that team element around me to be efficient? Uh, and that's really, I guess, where we do well is we're all about working as a team, not working as an individual. We work as a team. We want to work with our clients as their team. So everybody is a stakeholder in whatever project we do. The client doesn't come to us and say, "Hey, we want X, Y, Z," and then give it to us, and we give it to them, and end of story. There's got to be a good communication. There's got to be teamwork there for this project to be successful. And there's ownerships to different parts of that project. So I guess really what I'm doing is I'm bringing the military into the the private sector,
mm,
and I think that having procedures and having defined processes is important, and that's the military in me. If you start going out there and you start winging it, that's unfortunately that's the way some of the private sector works. They're out there, they're out there to wing it, and then they get into all sorts of trouble. And we get clients turn over and say, "Hey, we're in all sorts of trouble.
yep.
How did you get into that trouble?" Well, we sort of like winged it. Yeah. And then one of my questions when as a consultant with my consultant head on is, okay, you're doing this particular task in your business. Um, Firstly, why are you doing that? What are your goals? And then secondly, how are you doing that? What is your process? I said, oh, we don't have a process. Well, you must have a process or it wouldn't be working. Now, just walk me through what you do. That is your process.
Yeah.
Document that process. Then you can hand that to somebody else, or you can hand that to the likes of us and say, hey, here's our process. Let's automate that. What can we do to make that process more efficient? And something I forgot to mention was when I did my retraining whilst leaving the Navy, I did a lot of systems analysis. That was a subject area where I worked. So it's business systems analysis. So
Mm,
so that's very much that approach of
yeah.
turning a business process does not need to be in IT. It can exist as a manual process. It can, a database doesn't need to be an electronic database. A database can be a filing cabinet. It's still relevant. You can still have a filing cabinet. You can have a filing cabinet concurrently with something else. Then, one of the worst things I see in retail business, for example, is, oh, our systems are down. We can't take any money. Wow. You know, Surely if your systems are down and you've got customers still coming in through the door, you want their money. Yeah. Say, hey, give me cash. I can
Yep.
give you a receipt.
Yep. Yep.
Go back to the old bits of paper where you can run the reader over the card or something like that. Have a fallback process. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, and we're talking sort of semi into the world of that business continuity as well. So yeah, we work a lot with business continuity, disaster recovery. You've got to have that in mind when you're developing a solution that involves data and databases, because a business is going to revolve, it's going to pivot around that data. It's core to the business, and there's a number of small businesses, that we've encountered where everything's in one database, and I'll say, what happens if that database goes? Oof, it's gone. What do you do now?
Hopefully you
And
have a backup.
so many of them don't know. They
Hmm.
don't know what happens next. They don't know whether there's a backup. They don't know, what to do if even if they do have a backup, they don't know what to do with the backup. So it's all about all those sorts of planning side of things. So although automation and integration is our core focus, it's a whole solution.
Yeah.
We'll advise on those other features. We don't force anything on anyone, but we do make people aware of risks and such like that evolve around that. And again, okay, you've got backups. How secure are your backups? Are there any risks involved? Oh, great, you're doing a database backup and then you're shipping it out to some other third party to store it for you on a tape or something. Great. What happens if somebody gets hold of that tape? Can they read the data?
Yep. Yep. Security.
And yeah, it's security, security, security all the way.
Do you find any differences working with people from various industries, right? Education and military and finance, banking, and you mentioned winging it versus a process, right? Is one
Yep.
difference. Any other differences that like you have to keep in mind when you're working with these industries?
Um, Firstly, I'll say virtually every customer I've dealt with over, I mean, over 25 years, I've been working as either a consultant or uh, as, as whatever, and anything in IT. So over 25 years of dealing with customers, I think virtually every customer at some stage has said, we're unique. And you just smile and say, yeah, yeah, yes, you are unique. I agree with you. You're unique. But from an IT perspective, are you really as unique as you think?
Hmm.
I can hand my heart say you're not. There's so many other people wanting the same solutions, slight variations of it, which is your uniqueness, but you're not as unique as you think. And that's again that's where we come in and say, okay, we can make things easier for you rather than dealing with a completely unique solution for you. You can have a solution that's a custom solution, but it's customized on the outside. The core is still the same, right? And that's something that they have in common. Different
Just saying
differences,
that they're unique is what they have in
yeah,
common.
yeah, yeah. The differences. I mean, larger organizations tend to be a lot more political
Mm.
than small organizations. Large organizations, you're dealing with normally you're dealing with somebody that's in middle management who's out there to improve their career, or they're going to want to impress their
Oh wow.
bosses, or they want to achieve something really for themselves to make themselves look good in their company or make their department look good in their company.
Wow.
So it becomes quite a political thing, and then the budget holders might be a few levels up, and we've encountered things specifically in government where maybe they, for reason X, Y, Z, they want to pay for the project, but they don't want it to succeed.
Wow.
Now, that happens in government. I'm really afraid to say that, and and that's something you've got to deal with as a third party. It's not our failure. It is, we're doing what the customers want us to do, and we just want to achieve what they want to achieve. But sometimes they're not aligned with what they want to achieve. I guess
That must
that's
be hard
really
for your team
that
too.
that
Like who
that's really, yeah,
who wants to build a project just to have it, quote unquote fail? Like that must be hard for your team members.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
and that's something you've just got to adapt to, and you've got to accept that not all projects are going to succeed. And success is normally down to the management of the project or the direction of the project rather than the actual technical team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and that's something you hear a lot of, in business where they say, oh, we got so many projects failing. There's a failure rate in projects. You don't get that in the more regular private, small to mid-sized private industries because they want a project to run because they've got a specific goal to achieve and being on supporting that. Again, that's coming back to the whole team. every stakeholder that's sat around the table on this team, they've got to be involved in it. And if you're going to leave stakeholders out, and that's what happens in the large organizations, the government businesses, stakeholders may feel they're left out. They may feel that they're challenged by this. So they just need to adapt the way they need to adapt and say, actually, we've tried that way. Perhaps we should try a different way. They might want to achieve the same goal, but they want to do it a different way under a different project. And you just got to accept that in government, they've got the ability to shut down projects because they want to.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that to me that is a big difference. It's being in that mindset of, okay, we're going to do whatever we can to make a project succeed, but we can't control what happens in your organization.
I really appreciate how brutally honest you are, right, with the reality of the business.
Yep.
And I am observing you understand your customer so well, your customer persona to that level of detail, to what they're thinking, to what their personal career goals are, to what the budget holders are thinking, and what the difference between those middle and upper management levels are, and government politics. um, I feel like folks entering the business might not understand that, at first. I feel
Yep.
like that's wisdom that you gain, and also having a perspective where you understand and empathize with the customer and really understand the psychology of it. I feel like that's kind of rare. And I imagine that's a very powerful sales tool, a sales strategy, right? To have that understanding of that deep understanding of your customer persona. Where did you develop that? Like, did that just come naturally to you? Just sort of knowing them that well, so that you know how to position yourself and your team for success.
I probably believe it's my life experience that's brought me to that. Certainly in a military, um, it's something you have to become accustomed to as well. In the military, you're driven by rank and orders and such like, but you're also driven by teamwork and camaraderie. And you really got to be able to know and trust the people around you. When like in the Navy, you're on a ship, and you might be on a ship with like 200 people. Each one of those people has a particular job. You know, there's quite a few people on a ship that are a single point of failure because they're the only one on the ship that can do that particular job. And knowing that you can rely on somebody else to do their job, so you can do yours, is really important. And so I guess judging that and judging what you need to do to say, okay, actually, no, I can't quite rely enough on that one person on that one channel. What's my fallback? What other, how am I going to make myself fail safe? And translating that to any IT solution, again, we're talking that disaster recovery, in BCP's side of things. It's just ordinary flow of data, ordinary flow of actions. Say, okay, what happens if that doesn't happen the way you expect it to happen? So your process is effectively broken. What's your fallback? What do you do when your process breaks? So
Wow.
translating that into people again is exactly the same thing. So people are part of the process, and you've probably seen it. I've seen it so many billions of times in different presentations. But there's one presentation by an Oracle representative that was talking about security, and they drew on the whiteboard. They just whiteboarded a solution. Bang, bang, bang. This goes to here and here. Okay, right. Where's your biggest security weak points? And basically, is every place where there's a person. If it's system to system, it's not such a weak point. People are both your strongest asset and also your weakest point in any particular business process. So you can have a really good person that's really good at their job, but if for whatever reason they leave, they go ill, can somebody else take over that role?
Hmm.
They become a weak link. So the more weak links in a business process you can remove through automation, the better. And that doesn't mean that you're giving that person the elbow. That means that person's going to be reassigned to doing a different task. They're going to be responsible for making sure the system's doing what it's meant to be doing. Rather than actually doing it themselves, they're going to be responsible for making sure that that system's doing it. And it's one of those big fears that organizations can have. And again, we go back to government is they can be very protective of their jobs. They see automation as potential risks to their job. And let's take completely off the cards. You look at an Amazon warehouse, for example. It's not people going around the shelves picking stuff off the shelves. So that's a human's job gone because robots are doing it. But somebody's got to maintain that robot. Somebody's got to make sure those robots are doing good. So there's again, it's different people changing their roles, and you've got to be not frightened of technology. You've got to embrace it and be willing to change your role and work with modernization. If nobody accepted change, we'd still be farming the fields with a plow and a horse.
Hmm.
You know, things happened, and we technology advanced the human race, and you can only advance with it if you're willing to adapt to it. And that's the same with the artificial intelligence that everybody's scared of. Oh, are we going to all lose our jobs? Well, you're not going to lose your jobs. The work you do might change. Things might be easier, less stressful. You might not have to work 50, 60 hours a week. You might only have to
Yep.
work 20 or 30 hours a week. But because the company's making the same amount of revenue, you could be paid the same amount of money, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. As we wrap up here, I was just curious about one thing. You mentioned starting out in the UK and then building your business in Australia. Do you travel a lot? Have you been like a bunch of places, throughout your career and just,
I I have traveled a fair bit. Past few years, basically been landlocked in America. But really coming to America, that was a business strategy. In Australia, there's 22 million people across the country.
uh-huh.
In Florida alone, we've got 65 million. Right. So it just makes sense to me saying, okay, if I could succeed in a 22 million population, I should be able to do 3 times better in a
Mm,
65 million population, right? And when you look at the United States as a whole, 330 million people, so the opportunities are much greater in America, and the problems, believe it or not, the problems are the same.
mm,
You know,
mhm.
I was born and raised in the UK, and then we moved to Australia. We lived in Australia for 10 years, became Australian citizens, and now we brought the business here to America, and we hope to build on the successes that we've had before, and bring that here as well, and really balloon the business. And thankfully, we got through the COVID days, uh, got through the disasters of COVID. Um, one of
Resilient.
the yeah, exactly. One of the businesses surviving from that, and we're actually reaping the benefit now as well. So it's good that we're actually being able to accelerate back up that curve again.
Wow. Very, very awesome.
And so sorry, I will
Yeah, yeah,
recommend to anyone and everyone out there, go and live somewhere else in the world, at least one other place in the world for at least a year or something like to experience a different lifestyle.
wow.
And I really recommend that to anyone.
Why? What did you learn? Right. You talked about
Yep.
the business opportunity, but why do you say that?
I say that because you get to appreciate more of what happens on the other side of the fence. Grass is always greener the other side of the fence, they say. Go the other side of the fence, live there for a while, experience that, and say, "Hey, is the grass really greener here?" Every country has its problems. We've only lived in like westernized countries. We've lived, like UK, Australia, America. You would have thought, democracy is all much the same. And as far as the political side of things, very much similar problems, similar approaches, similar demographics. Lifestyles are different, but the problems are the same. And yeah, it's been great to experience all that and experience what other people experience as well.
Hmm. Absolutely. I feel like there's a connection there, that there's a common thread in how you value these different perspectives and bringing all these different perspectives, understanding of how people live and how people think, whether it's bringing it into your business, into your sales, or just living life and gaining that wisdom and that just for yourself. It's like, oh, is the grass greener?
Yeah.
Yeah, I I absolutely love that. So last question, who should reach out to you, Simon, and what's the best way to reach you? Feel free to do your plug.
Okay, sure thing. Okay, so obviously we focus on education in America at the moment. We're dealing mainly with charter schools, prep schools, private schools. They're the people we can help the most. They're easiest to help because they control their own budgets. They have more control of their own entities. Happy to work with anybody else in the education systems. So your different county school systems, your districts and such like. But they start building that political mass on top, and it becomes harder
Hmm.
for them to achieve what they need to achieve.
Yeah, yeah.
And we want to help people to achieve what they need to achieve. So any business out there that thinks, hey, we think we could do something better. We think there's an easier way of doing this. Contact me and just ask me and say, hey, we're doing this. Is there an easier way? And I'm going to be straight up front and say, hey, there's an easier way. It's going to cost you a lot, or there's an easier way. It's going to be really inexpensive, and you'll see return on your investment in weeks or months. And it is that quick. If you're spending days and hours plowing through spreadsheets, your return on investment on automation is going to be really, really rapid. So, ask me that question. Doesn't matter the business industry you're in. We deal with lots of different businesses. We deal with small, large. Like I say, we dealt with the likes of Billabong. We dealt with a lot of small companies as well, individual um, business owners by themselves. So we can help virtually anybody. If you need an application, if you need an integration, if you just think there's got to be a better way, chances are there is a better way. So give me a shout. Do do you provide the email links or just go through our
Yep,
website?
the links will be in the description. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Just contact us through our website or just contact me by email, and we'll get back to you and just have that honest discussion on how we can help you. If we can't help you, if the solution's not going to be right to you, if we know that it's going to be over budget to you, we'll have that discussion. We'll just be upfront with it. We're not going to try and drive something that doesn't work for you.
Very cool. And Simon, I'm going to steal your pitch. So, hey, are you an MSP? If you think that there's an easier way for you to do full risk assessments, not just external, but like full risk assessments, data security, application security, password breaches, and social engineering, then get your free automated risk assessment on Telivy at telivy.com right now. Telivy.com. Links in the description. And thank you so much, Simon, for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your
Thank
career,
you.
your wealth of experience, and wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.